So today I'm welcoming to you to my YouTube channel. I have a special guest joining me. This is Karen Stokes. She's the creative behind the Brown Gardener blog, and she specializes in beginner vegetable and flower gardening. So I thought it would be fun to have her talk a little bit about what it would be like for people to start a vegetable garden. So, Karen, let me start by asking you, I'm a new gardener and I've
Mhm.
never done any gardening before, and I just moved into a new house and I want to start growing some vegetables. What in the world? How do I start? I mean,
What
what do I grow, and how do I figure out even where to site the garden? Let's start with that. How do I site the garden?
let's see. I would say the very first step would be figuring out where you want to grow your garden. Everybody has a way of, determining in their yard the amount of hours of sunshine that you'll get. You definitely need 6 to 8 hours of sunshine. But I wouldn't suggest for you to start with a big garden. Something small that would not be overwhelming would be ideal. Even if you wanted to start a small raised bed, that's a good option, or even a container garden, depending on what you choose to plant. But don't get too tied down into tilling 4 or 5 different rows in a big 20 by 80 piece of land. You want to start small to figure out,
Hmm.
to get a feel of it, and you want to give yourself the opportunity to go out there every day. If it's something that's too overwhelming, you will not want to do it every day, so it has to be something that's manageable.
Okay. So I do need to realize that there is a daily commitment to this.
Absolutely. If even if you don't water your garden every day or do anything physical to it, you want to inspect it at least to make sure there are not any bugs out there chewing up your leaves, or you may have situations where you have something turning yellow, or there may be issues with your plant. So you want to try to keep an eye on it every day, if for nothing else, just to make sure something's coming up and there's absolutely nothing that's, messing with it.
Aha. Okay. So, when it comes to taking the lawn out,
Hmm.
I've decided where I have the most sun, and I need what size it's going to be. But what's the best way to get rid of the lawn and prepare the soil?
I would say preparing the soil. If you've never grown anything in your soil before, I would highly suggest testing the pH of your soil. You can buy one of these kits at Lowe's for maybe $12, $30, or you can take a sample to your local co-op extension, if you have one in your area, and they will test it for a small fee. This will help you in preparing the soil and trying to figure out what type of soil you have. But once you figured out your soil type, you would want to loosen the soil about 6 to 9 inches with a rake, a shovel, a spade, or
Hmm.
maybe even a tiller if you have one. Um, and then you want to add some organic matter like compost or manure to that top level of soil. I normally add about 2 to 3 inches of organic matter. And once you've worked the compost into your bed, then it's pretty much ready. But if you're dealing with a situation where you have, like for me, I have Bermuda grass, and I had a project where I wanted to have this very detailed um, garden space, and I was going to have to pull up at least, I don't know, maybe 6 feet of Bermuda grass. So I just took a spade and kind of lifted up the first 3 inches of the grass, and kind of did the same thing. I added the manure and compost to it. But I will say this: if you have soil that has a lot of clay in it, then you may definitely want to go with a raised bed, because in those instances it takes a while to get that soil ready, and it may take years for it to get ready. But if you're in a pinch and you just want to get started today and you have a lot of clay in your soil, then you probably want to go with a raised bed
Hmm.
initially.
Hmm. And what's the best way to build a raised bed?
A raised bed can be built pretty much out of any material. I mean, you can use, I've seen people use cinder blocks and just stack them. You figure out the dimensions that you want. Let's say you want to do a raised bed that's, if you wanted to do a small one that was like 5 by 5, 5 feet by 5 feet, you can make it out of railroad ties. You can make it out of cinder blocks. You can make it out of any material. You just need something that encloses the area and you can actually build the soil up. I would say no more than about 7 to 9 inches. That'll give you a good amount of space to dig into, and you want the soil to be pretty loose.
Hmm.
So, and then you don't want it to be so deep that when you plant it, it takes forever for the water to get in there. And a lot of times the water will sink to the bottom. So you don't want an 18-inch garden and all your water sinks to the bottom. So you want something about I would say 7 to 9 inches deep, depending on what you're growing.
Okay. Okay. So, um, where do I get soil to fill the raised beds? What do
You
I put
can
regular soil in, or do I need a lighter, like a potting mix?
I would say if you have a local nature center that you can buy soil from, it's usually going to be a pretty good mixture of compost, manure, maybe peat moss mixture.
Hmm.
Um, and you can buy that. You can buy, they're going to sell it to you by a huge truckload most of the time, but you can also buy it in bags. If you don't want to deal with a pile of dirt being dumped in your yard, then you can always go to Lowe's or somewhere like that and get a good potting mix. And as a matter of fact, most of these big box retailers now sell raised bed garden soil. So that'll take the guesswork out of it. It's already got the perfect mixture for you.
Okay. So, how do I know whether I have the right balance of nutrients for my soil? Is there a way? You said that soil testing the pH, but what about the nitrogen? And I know different vegetables have different requirements. So how do I
Mhm.
figure that out? How all of that out?
Um, if you're a beginner gardener, you can kind of you can actually test it yourself, but I would suggest, as a beginner gardener, just go ahead and buy the soil mixture from a local nursery or a big box retailer that's for raised beds. And the only reason why I say that is because you don't want to have the incorrect mixture of nitrogen and things like that in your soil and you're a beginner. I think that may be a little overwhelming in the beginning,
Mhm.
possibly, um, because now you have to have a specific mixture, 30% this, 30% this, and it just may be too much. And it's just, there are easier tools out there for you to just go buy it and it's already mixed for you. But if you want to get into acidity and alkalinity and amendments. I mean, there's so much information out there for those types of things, but it's going to be highly dependent on what you're growing. So, certain vegetables require more nitrogen, whereas some vegetables don't like it. So you're kind of getting that gray area of doing too much to your soil depending
Uh-huh.
on what you're trying to grow. So I would keep it simple as a beginner gardener and just kind of roll with, a general mixture that's already in a bag.
Okay. Well, I've seen on seed packets they talk about, after the danger of frost has passed. So how do I know when the last frost date is for my area?
If you are looking for the last frost dates for your area, I would trust the Farmer's Almanac website. It's a pretty accurate gauge. I've used it for years. Um, and of course, your local weather station will always keep you updated in regards to the last frost dates. Frost dates are important because they determine how long your growing season is. You want to ensure that you're not planting or harvesting past a date where you're running into freezing temperatures. So I would say between the Farmer's Almanac and your local weather station, you'll pretty much stay abreast of when, on how to plant your vegetables.
Okay. Um, so are there any advantages to using heirloom seeds?
From personal experience, one of the biggest benefits that I've always heard is that you can save them over and over each year because they're open pollinated. So with hybrids, um, they may be good one year, and then after so many seasons, you know, they don't produce like they did in the beginning. From what I've heard, they usually have a better taste to them. And I've read that they are more nutritious than some of the hybrids. But, some of the farmers or people that have gardens that have been doing it for years will always tell you, hey, I use heirloom seeds for this. And you even find people that use heirloom seeds for a lot of their flowers too. But there are several companies online that sell heirloom seeds. They're significantly higher, but you know, if you're looking for something that you can replant over and over and you don't mind harvesting seeds, then that's definitely a pretty good route to take.
Oh, my next question. How do I manage pests? How do I figure out what the problem is and find the right solution?
Oh my goodness. Pests are different in each growing zone. If you want to do it the natural way, I would say that goes back to going out to your garden every day. Pull your weeds, inspect your garden every day, um, use insect traps. You have beneficial insects. If you have a problem with certain bugs eating, different plants in your garden, you're going to benefit from having bees and spiders and natural things like that out there. They will definitely get rid of them. You just have to pay attention to your garden. If you're out there daily, you'll notice pests and insects early
Hmm.
because you'll say something is eating my leaves, or something looks different about my garden. There are several apps out there that will help you figure out what's going on with your plant by simply taking a picture of the affected area.
Hmm.
The app scans the picture and tells you exactly what's wrong with your plant. First, it'll identify your plant, and then it will tell you, exactly what's going on with it. And I know two of the apps are Plantin, Plantin, and Picture This. But if you just want to go the completely free way, and it works just as well, use Google Lens. Google has a free app called Google Lens, and you can take a picture of a plant, you can take a picture of a car, an outfit, whatever. It'll
Wow.
tell you exactly what it is, what you need to do with it, and it is great and it's free. Um,
Good
but
to know.
yeah, if you aren't opposed to chemicals, then you can use Seven Dust. It usually repels most insects. You also have several varieties of insecticidal soaps and oils that you can use. It depends on what's eating your plants and what method of pest control you want to use. So you have a lot of
Yeah.
choices out there.
So I would think that you wouldn't want to use a pesticide, something toxic on say a leaf that
Exactly.
you're going to eat, like lettuce. You
Exactly. Personally, I go as organic as possible. If I see, just regular wear and tear on my plants, I don't get too bent out of shape. But I can honestly say when I first started gardening years ago, I probably would sprinkle Seven Dust on my tomatoes or something like that. But I just felt a little uneasy knowing that I'm going to eventually eat this eat this produce. So I found that, you know, even with me doing it in a container garden, a raised bed, and in the ground, I really don't have that many issues as long as I'm going out there and inspecting my garden every day. And I think the most I've used this year was neem oil, and that's pretty much it. And you can just wipe your leaves down with that, and it's so strong it'll repel pretty much anything.
Yeah. So I also wanted to say I think that bugs, especially they lay their eggs on the underside of the leaf.
Exactly. Hmm.
So you need to look
Flip it
underneath.
over. Yep.
And a lot of times you'll see the egg casings and then you could just use a Q-tip or something and wipe
Hmm.
them off. And
Exactly. And same thing with I don't think they're on some plants, but you have spider mites, and they definitely are up under your leaves. But you'll see a lot of spider mites with house plants more so than vegetables.
okay. Well, I was actually also going to ask you about organic. Is there any advantage to having an organic garden?
I think that if you're trying to lead a healthy lifestyle, that the organic gardening is the way to go. You may have to spend more time looking at your plants and making sure they're growing the way that you want them to grow. And they probably won't be as pretty as some of the ones that use chemicals. But um, for me, I think it's peace of mind
Mhm.
and knowing that your stuff, your vegetables don't have any pesticides in them. And, you know, I mean, you think about organic gardening or what people label as organic gardening now, it's just the normal way that people planted vegetables back in the day.
Right.
You know, nobody was walking around with 15 different bags of, you know, Jobs and all different kind of meals and all this stuff. And there's nothing wrong with fish emulsion and things like that, but it's organic gardening is just bare bones gardening. You're just out there, you plant your stuff, you go look at it, you make sure it's growing properly. And if you see pests, I mean, a lot of times, even something like the tomato horn worm, you know, you can just pull it off. You know, you
Mhm.
can pull it off. You know, make sure you put it a long way away from your tomatoes, but
So
you
if you
can
have
pull
a
it off.
neighbor that has backyard chickens, you take them there and then feed them feed them to the chickens. And this is
Exactly. So,
and my
you know, it's
vegan followers are going to be like, "What?" But yeah.
exactly. But yeah, it's just organic gardening. It's just regular old gardening, and you don't need 20 different bags of fertilizer and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I think it's more health benefit. It has more health benefits, and it gets you more in tune with what you're growing.
Well, I think we pretty much covered the basics for beginners. And what I'm going to ask is, first of all, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on my blog, which is www.thebrowngardener.com, and that's TheBrownGardener.com. I'm also on Instagram under the same name, The Brown Gardener. And I have a Pinterest account that's at The Brown Gardener and the number 9.
Okay. And I will put all those links in the description box below so that
Mhm.
people can find you. And I understand you have a class in the works.
Yes, I have a class in the works. If you're interested in taking my beginner houseplant class, you can sign up at thebrowngardener.com/houseplant dash intern. Um,
I'll have a link to that too below. So,
I will show you how to reduce the anxiety of growing plants, how to choose your first plant, and the tools you need to successfully take care of a plant. So I would say in about 4 to 6 weeks, you should be able to take care of your first house plant. It won't be anything huge like a monstera or something like that, but you will be able to see growth, take care of it, take away all that anxiety, and get you started with your green thumb. So my date right now is set for October 2nd. Um, but I do have a link to the course that I'll give you so
Okay,
everyone can join it.
cool. Yes, and
Hmm.
if you look in the description box below, there are all the links where you can find Karen on her blog and social media and her class. So would my class, if I wanted to say grow tomatoes in pots,
Hmm.
because you're talking about growing, you're talking about growing house plants, but if I wanted
Hmm.
to say grow potato, would that be a good class for me to take?
Yes, yes, because I found just from talking to beginner gardeners, they have anxiety about growing just about anything. So if we start with something small, something like a house plant, and with it being October, that time of year frame, I don't want to start with a vegetable or anything like that at that time of
Oh
year
yeah,
because,
that's true.
yeah,
That's
you would be
good
stuck
point.
kind of growing it in the house. But I do have additional courses coming up that will get into the vegetable gardening, but this is more or less like a fall course.
Hmm.
You can always buy house plants at your local store. I mean, they even have them at grocery stores now, so
Right.
they're pretty easy to find. So we'll start with house plants first and reduce that anxiety and get you growing.
Cool. So I have one more question for you, and that is I have basil plants and the
Hmm.
leaves are turning yellow. Any idea what the problem might be? I'm
Um,
thinking, is it a sun issue or do I actually need to have some more nitrogen in the soil? Because they're in pots, and I'm reusing soil from last year that I grew other things in. So do I need to replenish the soil?
I don't think you need. I think the first thing you need to do, if the leaves are turning yellow, it's probably underwatering. I found that especially in the summertime, I have leaves that turn yellow all over my basil plant. And usually, if I adjust the watering schedule, that fixes the problem. But I will say this: if your leaves are turning yellow, just go ahead and pull them off. But adjust your
Okay.
watering schedule first. And of course, you don't want if the basil plant looks like it's, flowering at the top, you definitely want to pull that piece off. So I make it a habit to pull off any yellow leaves and also pull off maybe the first set of leaves off the top, once a week, or if some new leaves are coming in. And that pretty much keeps your plant pretty healthy. I do the same thing. I use the same exact soil every year, but I notice that when it gets really warm, I'll end up with those yellow leaves. So I just pull them off, adjust my watering schedule, and make sure I prune the top of them every so often so they won't go to seed early.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It was nice
Thank you.
having you here as my first interview, my first guest on my YouTube channel. So
Thank you.
I'm glad you could join us, and good luck with your class.
Thank you. I have really enjoyed my interview.
Okay. All right. And thank you to everybody else for watching.